The desert wind carried the smell of dust and sage as Eli Mercer rode alone across the fading plains, a man shaped by silence and years of unanswered prayers, a rancher whose life had narrowed to fences, cattle, and the ache of loneliness that followed him like a shadow at sundown, for since the death of his wife to fever years earlier, Eli had spoken more to his horse than to any human soul. And on that evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, he had no idea that fate itself was already moving toward him with quiet, deliberate steps because from the rocky ridges above, eyes watched him, sharp, assessing. Female eyes belonging to the Apache women's tribe known as the Daughters of Dawn, a fierce and secretive band who lived apart from men after war and betrayal had taught them the cost of trust. And when Eli's horse stumbled in a narrow canyon and sent him crashing into stone, unconscious and bleeding, it was those women who surrounded him like spirits from the old stories, lifting him not as prey but as a question the world had sent them. When Eli awoke, bound yet unharmed, the sky above him was unfamiliar and the faces around him were strong, proud and unreadable, led by Ayanna, the tribe's calm and commanding leader, whose voice carried both steel and mercy, and she told him he was alive because the spirits had not finished with him yet. Words that should have frightened him but instead stirred something, deep and forgotten in his chest. Days turned into nights as Eli healed among them, watched constantly yet treated with care, and in that strange captivity he did not beg or rage, for something in the way the women moved, laughed, trained, and lived stirred his respect, and he spoke only when spoken to, helping where he could, fixing tools, calming horses, sharing stories of the land not as an owner but as a listener, and slowly the tribe noticed that this white rancher carried no hunger for conquest in his eyes, only weariness and quiet strength. Nita, the scout with laughter like wind chimes, teased him relentlessly, while Tala, the healer, saw the scars on his soul more clearly than those on his body, and even the youngest girls crept close to hear his soft stories of stars and storms, until one evening by the fire, Eli spoke of his wife and the grave he still visited, and in that moment the tribe understood that grief had shaped him as deeply as war had shaped them, and something shifted, unseen but powerful. Ayanna watched him closely, testing his patience, his honor, his respect for their ways, and when raiders threatened the camp and Eli warned them in time, standing unarmed beside the women instead of fleeing, the final wall broke, for courage without domination was rare, and when he was finally unbound and offered freedom, Eli surprised them all by staying, not as a captive, not as a conqueror, but as a man willing to belong. And it was then, under a sky thick with stars, that the women of the tribe began to see him not as an outsider, but as a steady flame in a world of storms, a man whose presence brought calm instead of fear, warmth instead of wounds. And as the fire crackled and Ayanna's gaze softened, the legend of the lonely rancher who would win every woman's heart began not with conquest, but with humility. And if this story is already pulling you into its world, remember that legends continue only when they are shared. So take a moment to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this live and breathe through those who choose to follow the journey. When dawn broke over the Apache camp weeks later, it found Eli Mercer no longer a stranger but a quiet constant, a man who rose with the sun, worked without being asked, and listened more than he spoke. And in a tribe where strength had long been defined by survival, his gentleness became a new kind of power, one that disarmed suspicion and drew hearts closer without demand. For Nita admired the way he laughed at himself, Tala trusted him with sacred remedies, and even the warriors found comfort in his steady presence during long watches, while Ayanna, ever observant, saw how the tribe itself was changing, how laughter returned more easily, and how the air no longer felt sharpened by old grief. Eli never claimed affection, never asked for devotion, yet one by one the women found themselves drawn to him, not in rivalry, but in shared admiration, for he honored each of them as individuals, respecting their independence and celebrating their strength, and in doing so he awakened something long buried, the belief that care did not have to mean control. When drought threatened the land and Eli offered knowledge of water paths and grazing patterns, he did so as a partner, not a savior, and together they led the tribe through hardship, forging trust deeper than blood, until one night Ayanna finally spoke the truth aloud, telling him that the spirits had brought him not as a test, but as a bridge between worlds, and Eli, standing beneath the moon, answered not with promises of ownership but with a vow of respect. saying he would walk beside them for as long as he was welcome. Love in that place did not take a single form, for it lived in shared meals, in laughter after danger, in the quiet comfort of presence. And the women loved Eli not because he tried to win them, but because he never tried at all. And when at last he chose to return briefly to his ranch to settle old ties, the tribe let him go without fear, knowing he would return by choice, which he did, riding back at sunrise with supplies and a heart finally at peace. His legend spread across the frontier, whispered by traders and travelers, as a tale of a man captured by warriors who discovered that the strongest bond is not forged by chains or fear, but by mutual respect. And the story endured because it reminded the world that even in the harshest lands, kindness could rewrite destiny. And now, as this tale reaches its end and its echo lingers like hoofbeats on open ground, remember that every great legend continues only when someone chooses to hear the next one. So if this story moved you, inspired you, or carried you into another time, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because many more unforgettable Wild West stories are waiting just beyond the horizon.